Okay, what are we saying?
And what? Yeah.
Maybe last time you didn't voice the skin. And I did with age 20.
No, I think it was less than both on age 20.
Did I come to this time?
I don't know. We're gonna have to turn them. No, I'm not.
Just put headphones on then.
Hello, guys. Hello, Kayla, Benji, Daniela, Kelsey. How's it, Josh? Kezia. Hello, Rabbi Daber. Josh and Michelle and Alon.
Hello.
There's Galia, Tori, Tiffany, the other Tori. Hello, John. Nice to see all your names. Be greater to see your faces, guys. Benji Diner, at least, is showing us his picture. Okay, just a couple minutes, guys. I think we'll wait like a minute or two. Try and get most everybody in. I'll tell you, with this waiting room that we have to use, I feel like I'm standing at the door, welcoming everybody personally, except I can't see you. Just a couple more minutes. We have a lot more people that registered, coming in one at a time. Okay, one more minute, we'll start.
Shalom.
Great to see you. Okay, I think we'll start. I think it's good to try and start as much time as we can. Just welcome everybody to the second podcast of this 4-podcast series on authentic joy by Rav Daber Cohen, we flew in from Yerushalayim. So I just want to let everybody know that this is a 4-week series, next week and the next 2 weeks at 8 o'clock. And then we have other exciting things to announce as well. But without further ado, I want to introduce Rabbi Daber Cohen.
Thank you so much, my rabbi, mentor, friend, guide. So here we are, part 2. And we're talking about what you all want, really. And what you all want and what everyone wants in life is we just want to be happy. Simcha is called in Hebrew. Simcha. And we just to very, very quickly summarize last week. We said, like with everything in life, you have to clarify the goal. You have to understand the steps that you need to achieve the goal. And then you have to have the discipline to take those steps. So if your goal is to become a gold medal gymnast, you have to envision the goal. You have to understand what it is. Then you have to work out what it takes to do that. And then you've got to have the discipline to do that. So that's going to involve, there are some things you should be doing. You should be training a lot and you should be eating the right things. And there's some things you shouldn't be doing, like going out and getting wasted with your friends, because those things aren't going to take you to your goal. So if your goal is happiness, you've got to work out those things that are going to create happiness in your life. And you've got to work out those things that are going to stop happiness in your life. And you have to really focus on doing the ones that are going to get you where you want to go and avoiding the ones that are not going to get you where you want to go. Very simple, really. So we said last week that most people believe that happiness is the feeling I get as a result of getting what I want. Things go my way, and that makes me feel a certain way. It's a certain positive feeling I have, and I feel good, and that's what happiness is. And that's why happiness is so difficult to grasp, because things don't always go your way. And even once they do go your way, if you get a new car, if you get your dream car, you're only going to be happier for about 10 days. And then you go back to your general level of happiness, because real happiness, simcha, we said, is a consistent state of being. And a consistent state of being is based on one thing and one thing only, and that is having a positive attitude, which is really means that we're turning inwards. We're turning inwards, and we're not relying on the external world. Now, this is our problem a lot in life, and Judaism comes to completely reverse our consciousness. Lots of our life is based on the external world, getting things in the external world, getting recognition from the external world, having success in the material world. And Judaism says we got it all wrong. What we really have to be doing is looking inwards and realizing that true happiness, it sounds a bit corny, but true happiness is inside. And true connection is inside, and true sense of self is inside, and true success is from self-actualization. So we've got to turn inside, and we're not going to rely on the external world anymore to give us what we want, or even dictate and define how we feel. Most people feel good or feel bad based on the external world. If it's nice weather, then I feel good. And if it's bad weather, I feel bad. And if I get the bus, I feel good. And if I miss the bus, I feel bad. And if my football team wins, I feel good. And if my football team loses, I feel bad. And if people like my Facebook post, I feel good. And if they don't, I feel bad. So that's really most people's lives all the time. We're just basically victims to external circumstances which are completely beyond our control. So we got to tap into real happiness. And we said last week, real happiness comes from having a positive attitude. And then we defined positive attitude. And this is how we define positive attitude. Positive attitude means I focus on the good. I'm always focusing on the good. And I'm growing from the bad. I'm growing from the bad. So I'm always looking for the silver lining. I'm always looking for the one good thing. Even if everything seems terrible, I'm looking for the good. And the negative things, the bad things, I'm not ignoring them. I'm acknowledging them and using them as a way to grow. No pain, no gain. I'm going to tap into this and I'm going to use it to grow. So that's what it means to have a positive attitude. So what we said is that we have to start shifting our attitude. Whenever we notice that we're having a negative attitude, and the negative attitude means I'm focusing on the bad, and I'm letting the bad get me down, and I'm kind of taking for granted or ignoring the good. So I've got it completely the wrong way around. You'll notice a lot of times, let's say something bad happens to you. Something bad happens to people, they just go over and over it again and again. Why did this happen? They blame someone else, or they blame themselves, or so they get into this whole state of mind, and you can stay in that for days, months, split up with your boyfriend, split up with your girlfriend, lose your job, someone insults you, things don't go your way. We kind of dwell on those things. We're very kind of good at feeling pain. But when it comes to good things that happen to us, we just post it on Facebook quickly and then you kind of forget it. And what we need to do is completely shift that. The negative things that happen to us, we have to face them and grieve and process them. We've never said you should ignore your feelings and just say, I don't feel bad. In fact, the way you deal with feelings, which is different to the way you deal with thoughts, the way you deal with feelings is to feel them. Is to say, I feel really sad now. I feel really angry now. I feel really jealous now. I feel really upset now. I feel really guilty now. I feel these things. But rather than beating ourselves up for those feelings, just to feel them and say, okay, I feel these things and it's okay. I'm human. I'm a human being. It's okay to feel these things. And once you validate your own feelings and you validate yourself, the feeling kind of goes. It doesn't need to be there. It's been recognized. I noticed with my daughter when she was very young, you're going to notice I've got lots of daughter stories. I love my sons too. And I love them all equally, but some more equally than others. That's not true. So my daughter, so when she was 3 years old, I got lots of training when she was 2 years old. I forgot which one I was going to say. They're fine. I'm not going to tell that story now. But this is the work we're trying to do. Oh, here we go. Feelings. When she wanted to go to the bathroom, and her first cousin, who's a year older than her, also wanted to go to the bathroom. So they kind of went to the bathroom. We were in a restaurant, and they came back, and my daughter was distraught. I was like, oh no, what happened? And she sat on my lap and she said, Abba, she went first. She went first, and I wanted to go first. So what I wanted to say to her was, well, just get over it. That's not so bad. But that doesn't help. So what I did, because I read a parenting book, had I not read the parenting book, I would have told her just to get over it. I validated her feelings. I said, you know what? I hear that's really hard. I remember when I was your age and I wanted to, and that happened to me. My kids must think that every single bad thing that's ever happened to them also happened to me. Because every time they share something bad, I said, I remember when I was your age, that happened to me. But I validated her feelings. So you also have to validate your feelings. So when you feel sad and angry and upset and hurt and all that, so validate them. Say, okay, I feel this way and it's okay to feel this way. And once the feeling is validated, you can let go of it easier. So that's how we deal with negative emotions. But we have to start tapping into the positive attitude. How can we make sure that we don't get upset about not going to the bathroom in the first place? Once we are upset, you have to deal with it. So this is what the positive attitude is. I'm going to focus on the good and I'm going to grow from the bad. So last week I finished off saying we're going to start looking into the 6 positive attitude shifts that we're really going to need in our lives to make sure we're tapping into simcha, true joy. And you're going to notice that none of them have got to do with the external world. It's all got to do with how we relate to ourselves and to the external world. Because you can't choose necessarily very often what happens to you. But you can always, hopefully, if you have a positive attitude, choose how you're going to let that affect you. So we want to choose to let it affect us in a positive way. So the number 1 key foundational positive attitude shift that you're going to need in your life to be happy is a positive attitude towards yourself. Positive attitude towards yourself, and that really means self-esteem, self-respect. So we got to know how to do this because there are very, very, very many people who don't have a positive sense of self. They don't have self-respect. And there are very many people who have a very high view of themselves, but based on very external, superficial things, which isn't really themselves. And that means it's very unstable because once they stop getting recognition from other people, then they stop feeling good about themselves. So you can have someone who's very rich and he feels good about himself because he's very rich, and he loses his money, he stops feeling good about himself. It's because his sense of self was based on something that wasn't his self. It was based on something external to him. So there are many ways people get their sense of self. Even, I'm from England, so your football team wins. So you feel good. I feel good about myself. I tease my friends. We won. Look at us. We won. I feel good about myself because we won. And you didn't do anything. You just sat and watched the game and drank beer. So don't get your sense of self based on your football team winning. Some people get their sense of self based on their car. I got a nice car. I don't have a car, so I have no sense of self. No idea. I got a lovely electric bike. So I've got my car. My car's cool. Everyone says, wow, look how good his car gets. So I feel good about myself. You got to remember, this isn't yourself. Your car isn't yourself. If your car gets stolen, you're still yourself. You might be an angry self and an upset self, but you're still yourself. So don't get your self-esteem based on your car, because it's superficial and unstable. You'll one day see someone who's got a nicer car than you, and that's all you need. You just need one person with a nicer car, and then you could have been the big dog around here, but as soon as someone's got a nicer car, you become nothing. You don't become second place. Once you've lost second place, you're nothing anymore. So don't get your self-esteem based on your car. Some people get their self-esteem based on their clothes. Abercrombie and Fitch. I don't know what you have there. Woolworths. So whatever. So you get your. I feel good about myself. Look, I've got the cool clothes. I remember when I was a young lad growing up in England. It was all about you had to have Calvin Klein underwear. Calvin Klein underwear, and you had to pull it up just above your jeans so you could see the strip. So it says Calvin Klein. I think some people just cut out the strip and just sewed it on to not Calvin Klein underwear. But like, look at me, and you'd have to pull up your white t-shirt. You'd have to scratch your stomach or something, pull up your white t-shirt and just flash your Calvin Klein thing. It's like, whoa, wow. Why do you feel so good about yourself? Because you bought some underwear. And people kind of laugh, but we do this the whole time. You do it the whole time. I feel good about myself because people are turning their heads. Wow, look what they're wearing. So don't get your self-esteem based on your clothes. Then you got your house and even your job. The job is not you. If you lose your job, it might be an expression of who you are and what you're trying to do in the world, but your job isn't you, and your house isn't you, and your car isn't you. Even your talents. I feel good about myself because I'm a very good tennis player. Okay, but that's not you. How about this one? And by the way, this is probably the main one, and this is why our society is really quite sick, is many people get their sense of self based on their body. Look at my body. And it's because advertising, every advert in the world is good looking people with the right body. This is the right body you should have. And I'm trying to sell you cars, but I'm selling you cars with good looking women. I'm not telling you how good the car is or how much fuel it consumes. I'm just saying, if you buy this car, you'll be able to get a good girlfriend, a nice body. So people really get their self-esteem based on their body, which is very unhealthy. My daughter, again, when she was 3, all the stories when she was 3, but she's very pretty. My daughter's very pretty because my wife is very pretty. Baruch Hashem. So everyone who comes to my house, when they see my daughter, she's 3 years old, they're like, oh, you are so pretty. Wow, oh my goodness, you're so pretty, so pretty. This is very, very, very dangerous and unhealthy. Very dangerous and unhealthy. I don't want my daughter growing up thinking that her self-worth is based on how pretty she is. That's going to be terrible. Going to have eating disorders, and it's going to be horrible. So I sat her down when she was about 3, and I said to her, you are pretty, but that's just because Hashem made you pretty. You didn't do anything, you know. Hashem made you pretty, and because your image is pretty. What's more important than being pretty? So she said, being kind. I said, yeah, you know what, I'll praise you for being kind. I'm not going to praise you for being pretty. I'll mention it. I'll say, wow, you're pretty, but I'll say, you're pretty, Baruch Hashem. Thank God you're pretty. So people praise if she's got a new Shabbos dress. Someone came out, what a beautiful Shabbos dress. And I'm like, yeah, I bought it for her. I feel good about myself for her Shabbos dress. She shouldn't feel good about herself. She just put it on. I bought it for her. So you gotta realize that any sense of self based on these external things is unstable and unhealthy, and it's based on recognition for the external world. Now, by the way, people who have a good sense of self based on that they're very good at basketball and they got a nice car and stuff, they don't actually have deep happiness. Just having a strong sense of self doesn't bring simcha. Because if your strong sense of self is based on your car and your job and your body and your boyfriend's body, your girlfriend's body, you can get offended very easily if someone, it means you've got a big ego, basically. A sense of self, which isn't based on your true self and is based on these externals, is what we define as ego. And someone with a big ego can get upset quickly. And someone with a big ego, arrogant people, they actually have low self-esteem. They don't feel great about themselves. The difference between a strong sense of self and self-respect and ego and arrogance is that someone who's arrogant, arrogance means I need you to think I'm good. Self-respect means I don't need you to think I'm good. I feel good about myself for who I am, not for what you think of me. So really, arrogant people don't have self-respect, and it comes out in arrogance. So what is you then? Who are you, and why should you feel good about yourself? How can you feel good about yourself? So you got to work out. This is actually very deep here. We're now actually talk about who you are. Who are you? Sometimes we say things like, "I really let myself down." Well, who's the I and who's the myself there? I really let myself down. So we say something. We say, "I'm working on myself. I'm really working on myself. I'm working to improve myself." So what does someone mean when they say, "I'm working to improve myself"? What they mean is not their backhand. They might be going to tennis lessons and working on their backhand, but they don't come and say, "I'm working on myself." Everyone knows that. I'm working on myself doesn't mean I'm trying to get a better car. I'm working on myself doesn't mean I'm getting a better body. Everyone knows that when we say I'm working on myself, what we mean is my character traits. I'm working on my character traits. I'm working on becoming a nicer, better, sweeter, more loving, kind, compassionate person. That's what I'm working on. So that defines yourself much more than anything else. Basically your mind, your attitude, your thoughts. In Hebrew it's called your midot. So you are defined by your midot. We're going to see actually Judaism's even more deep and more beautiful and more high. But for now, I'm going to say you're defined by your midot. Now, we come to a bit of a problem here. Because many, many people come up to me and say, "Rabbi, I hate myself." So I'm like, "Why do you hate yourself?" And I know what they're going to say. They're going to say things like, "Because I let myself down often, and I'm impatient, and I'm jealous a lot." So I say to them at that point, well, why do you hate yourself? Because those are your negative character traits. That's not who you are. Your negative character traits don't define you. Your negative character traits don't define you. They're just things you need to work on. So if you have children, when you have children, Be'ezrat Hashem at the right time with a nice Jewish person, I'll be there, I'll be your rabbi. Rabbi Ziskin will be the rabbi, but I'll come in, I'll like make it amazing as well together. In Jerusalem, of course. So when you get married, you're going to have children, Be'ezrat Hashem, and they're going to have bad character traits. So you're not going to hate them for that. No one hates their children because their children got bad character traits. So don't hate yourself for your bad character traits. Just like you don't hate your children for their bad character traits, don't hate yourself for your bad character traits. All you have to do is work on them. So this is a half of what we defined as positive attitude. Positive attitude is I'm going to focus on the good. I'm going to focus on my good character traits. I'm going to focus on what I do like about myself. I'm going to focus on the good that I do in the world. I'm going to focus on my generosity, and I'm a good friend, and I'm disciplined, and I'm kind, and I've got all these good character traits. And my negative character traits, I'm not going to let that define me or bring me down. I'm just going to work on them. I'm just going to work on them. I'm going to improve them. So if someone comes up to me and says, "Dov Bear, you're very arrogant," I'll punch them in the face. I've got a black belt. No, I can see you're very arrogant. I'll take that as feedback, and I say, "Okay, you know what? I hear that. I don't feel bad about myself that there's arrogance there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on that, because once I have a strong sense of self based on my good character traits, then the external world and what other people think of me and needing recognition from other people doesn't affect me so much." So this is one of the power things of self-respect. And by the way, you don't have to be perfect to respect yourself. This is what I'm saying. You just have to focus on the good in you. And by the way, your mind is so strong at sabotaging everything that even when you do focus on what's good, let's say, if I'm a good father, I believe I'm a good father, then your mind will be like, well, you weren't a good father last month when you shouted at your child. So the truth is, if you shout at your child once a month, you're still a good father. You're not a perfect father. You're still a good father, so you can feel good about this. I want you to start feeling good about yourself for who you are, which means your good character traits. So the first piece of homework for this week is you need to write a list of 5 character traits that you respect about yourself. 5 good things, and they don't have to be perfect. And by the way, if you can't think of them, it doesn't mean you're humble. If you can't think of them, even ask people to help you, but you have to have a very, very strong sense of self and self-respect. I respect myself because I'm a loving and joyful husband and father, and I have discipline, and I'm focused on the positive. I also have problems with jealousy and ego. Okay, so I'll work on them. I'm not going to let them define me. So this is what we're saying. We're saying it's not you're defined by your character traits. That's not who you are. We're saying you are defined by your positive character traits. And just for basic Kabbalah, why is this true? Because we say at your real essence, you're not even your character traits. Your real essence, you're a soul. You're a neshama. And a neshama is perfect. And a neshama is pure. And the neshama is connected, and the neshama is joyful, and the neshama is giving and loving, and the essence of who you are is perfect. It says in the prophet Isaiah, Amech kulam tzadikim. Your whole nation is tzadikim. Your whole nations are fully enlightened, righteous people. And he doesn't say in the future, kulam yiyu tzadikim, in the future will be tzadikim. It says you are a tzadik right now. The essence of who you are is pure soul, and that's who you are right now. And when the soul comes down into a body, then you have 3 modes of expression. 3 modes of expression once the soul comes into the body are thought, speech, and action. Thought, speech, and action. So to the extent that you can get your thought, speech, and action in line with your soul, you can feel good about yourself for that. So I'm trying to think positive, uplifting, kind, loving thoughts. And I'm trying to say good things, and I'm trying to do good in the world. And sometimes I mess up, and that's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up about that. So your first piece of homework, and you really have to do it. I think you should write 5. You get an A+ if you write 10 things you like about yourself. And only once you feel deeply good about yourself can you then look at what you don't like about yourself so much. If you're not feeling good about yourself, and then you make a list of things you don't like about yourself, by the way, what I'm saying isn't even true. There's nothing you don't like about yourself, because yourself is perfect and pure. It's a soul. But you don't like the way you're manifesting yourself in the world. There's some character traits and thoughts and speech and action that don't represent your soul in the world. So you'll work on them, but you've got to feel good about yourself first. So in fact, I want everyone here now just to sit up straight, please. I want you to sit up straight. I don't want you to loosen your neck and your shoulders, twist in your chair a bit. Close your eyes if you want to. And I just want you to think about one good character trait that you have. And say to yourself, I like the fact that I am X. And some people might feel that this is arrogant to do this. But it's not arrogant, because you're not needing me to think you're that. You're just focusing on what is good about yourself. You're not saying you're perfect. So what I want you to do is start changing the soundtrack in your head. Many people have a very critical voice, and they put them, I'm not good enough, and I didn't try hard enough, and I all this self-judgment. What we're trying to do here is quieten that voice, quieten your critical voice, and replace it with a different soundtrack. We want you to have a good soundtrack. I want you to start speaking to yourself like you would speak to someone you love. I want you to start speaking kindly to yourself and feeling good about yourself for these things. And what's going to stop you getting arrogant is also acknowledging that you're not perfect, and then you can work on those things. So that's it. That's the first and key, most important attitude shift to life. If you're walking around the world feeling good about yourself, even though you're not perfect, but because at least you're trying to do your best, then life becomes much easier. And what other people think about you doesn't affect you so much. And you don't do things just to impress other people. You don't do things to get recognition from other people. The truth is that the person you really are is much greater than the person you often try to be to get recognition from other people, because their recognition is based on superficiality, is based on your body and your car and your job. So don't base your sense of self on that. I spoke to an American college group about a week ago, and I said, who here has ever had a shot of vodka that they didn't actually want, because what would everyone say about them if they didn't have it? And everyone put their hand up, basically. It's like, yeah, last night, or whatever you do. So I said, I just want you to notice that basically everyone put their hand up, which means whilst you're standing there with your friends having that extra shot of vodka that you don't want, they're all also having extra shots of vodka that they don't. You're all doing something that none of you want to do to impress everyone else. It's a crazy thing. And you don't feel good about yourself, and it's not healthy. And what happens is you go home and you go back to your bed at night, and you're lying in bed and you're wondering, what do people think about me? Do people like me? And the truth is, no one is thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. And if you like them, that's it. And if they are thinking about you, it's probably for about 5 seconds before they start thinking about themselves. So forget needing recognition from the external world. Start getting recognition for your good values and your good character traits and your achievements in life, but real achievements. Getting into the rugby team, that's a good achievement. But having self-control, that's a much greater achievement. Manifesting your essential goodness is very powerful. So there we go. Number 1, character shift. I got to tell you a funny story quickly. Don't know how many character shifts we're going to have today, but very quick, funny story. Last summer, I was in England, and I was driving, and I stopped at the traffic lights, and there was a very crippled hunchback beggar, like, came up to my car, and he was like, "Argh," and he asked for money. You wouldn't know what that feels like in South Africa, but it happens in England. He asked for money, and I gave him some. I put down the window. I said, I'll give him some money. So he said, thank you, and walked on. The guy in the car next to me freaked out. This guy, and he was a big, strong guy, bushy hair, put down his window, and he said, you idiot! You idiot! You're just encouraging him. He's a fake. I've seen him walk. You idiot. What have you done? People like you encourage people like him, and why don't you even think? Of course he's cheating, he's tricking you, and because of you, there are going to be more people like that on our streets, and you're ruining you. The guy freaked out. So I was like, okay, he's chosen the wrong person. I was like, okay. So now if I have low self-esteem, then that really shakes me up. And I go home to my wife and I'm like, I was just trying to do the right thing. I just wanted to give someone some money, and he shouted at me, and that's if I had low self-esteem. If I had arrogance, I'd shout back. I'd be like, do you know who I am? I'm doing the right thing. You're shouting at people. And but because I have a strong sense of self, I don't think I'm perfect. Believe me, I've got a lot of work to do. But I have a strong sense of self because I'm trying to be my best. So I put down my window, and he was like, you idiot. So I looked at him and I said to him, I hear what you're saying. I just think you could have said it in a nicer way. So he was like, he was like, yeah, mate, I guess you're right. And that was it. I drove away, he drove away. I was like, I'm not letting your negative energy affect me. I'm not going to let you say just one very quick story. It's very important because the stories actually get it in your head. I work with a post-high school yeshiva program, 18-year-old, mostly American boys. And I do all the personal development stuff. And I found out one day that they have a fight club in yeshiva. And they actually, on Thursday night, they fight each other, proper fighting. And they invited me actually to go. And I was like, I'm not allowed to hurt my students. Anyway, So there are the good guys. The good guys in yeshiva, they're not going to fight club and they don't care about fight clubs. Then you've got the bad attitude, smoking weed, you don't understand me guys, and they're all the fight club guys. Then you've got the middle guys. Now the middle guys are actually good guys, but they're very influenced by the bad guys, because the bad guys are cooler than the good guys, really, in that definition of cool. So they're very influenced by the bad guys, but really inside they're the good guys. And obviously even the bad guys are good guys inside, and I show them, whatever. So I was giving a class, and one of these middle guys basically said, look, it's my turn to fight tonight. I really don't want to. I never fight. I've never fought before, and I'm going to get hurt. I just don't want to. I said to him, don't do it. Just don't do it. And he was like, and one of the ringleader of the bad guys was in the class. And he basically turned around to that guy and said, I'm not even going to tell you the word he used, but maybe you'll be able to guess it. But he said, don't be a... And now the bad guy would never say that to one of the good guys, because the good guys would be like, what are you talking about? Just leave me alone. So the bad guys never pick on the good guys. The bad guys pick on the middle guys. So I said to this middle guy, I said to him, I just want you to know, you don't want to fight. You know it's bad for you. You don't want to do it at all. If you do fight just because he called you a this, then you really are a that. You are one of those if you do follow him. What you have to do is just not let him influence you, and that's the real victory. You're going to win by not fighting. You're going to win by doing what you know is the right thing to do. And that was on a Thursday, and I came in on Sunday, and I ran up to this guy. I was like, what happened? Did you fight? And he goes, Rabbi, I didn't fight. I didn't fight. And that's the biggest breakthrough in his life. And then he just started hanging out with the good guys, and the good guys don't care what the bad guys say. It's not even a thing. So it's very important to understand this. Once you feel good about yourself, you're not influenced so much by external pressure and negativity, and you don't wear clothes that you don't feel comfortable in just to look good, and you don't, whatever. Okay, so that was number one key positive attitude shift. What you're going to do to tap into that this week for your homework. By the way, we have set up a WhatsApp group. Wasn't overly used this week, which is okay. But I'm telling you now, if you come to an inspirational class just for 45 minutes or however long I'm talking for, and you're like, wow, that was great, but you're not doing the actual work, you're not doing the avoda on a day-to-day basis, it's just going to be an interesting class. It could be a good TED talk, you could read a good blog, but you have to get this into your kishkas, as they'd say. You have to be doing the work. So we're going to give maybe more clear guidelines this week coming up. But your first avoda is writing a list of things you like and appreciate about yourself and respect about yourself. So there you go, that's self-respect. Number two attitude shift. Very important. And I learned, do you know who I learned number two attitude shift from? I actually got a picture here. These children. Guess which one's me? Great. So these children are the children of Bagha Ashram Orphanage in Bihar state, which is the poorest state in India. And these children sleep on the floor in these rags. They have no electricity. Apart from that tiny little gasoline flame, all the light in the picture is from the flash of the camera. They have polio, lots of them. They can't walk properly. They don't have parents, or they have alcoholic parents. They have 1 meal a day, rice and some potatoes. And they share one pencil between 5 children. And they're much happier than most of my friends. They're much more content and happy than most of my friends. So why is that? So, and I basically lived with them for a month or so, and I tell you, this is the key. This is what their key, one of the keys to happiness, and a huge attitude shift that they had, and we don't have. And in fact, the more privileged you are, the less you have this usually, and that's called gratitude. Real conscious gratitude, though, not just, yeah, I'm really grateful for my legs, and I'm really grateful for my family, and I'm really grateful for my education. That's not good enough. Acknowledging the good things in your life, that's not called experiencing gratitude. You have to experience gratitude. So these kids I actually bought them each a pencil. They were sharing one pencil between 5 kids and bought them each a pencil. Best day of their life. But my friends, I've got an iPhone 6 and I wish I had an iPhone 7, or I've got this car and I could get that car. We always want more. We think if I get more, then I'll be happier. That's not true. That's not true. If you stop wanting so much, then you'll be happier. That's true. It's exactly the exact opposite. It says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, Ezehu Ashir, who is the rich person? Hasamech b'chelko, the person who is happy with what they have. That doesn't mean you don't have any dreams and aspirations, but in the meantime, what I have, I am happy with everything I have in my life. It's a very, very key shift. So let's define gratitude. You should be able to define it for yourself based on what we said about positive attitude. But gratitude means I focus on what I do have, not on what I don't have. I focus on what I have, not on what I'm lacking or what I wish I had or what other people have. I have, and it's unbelievable what we have, by the way. It's unbelievable how much we have. We're really in the top 2% of privileged people in the world. And if you're privileged, you shouldn't feel guilty about being privileged. You should feel grateful and responsibility to help other people. You should feel deeply grateful. The fact that you can, even your body, the fact that you breathe and your heart's beating, there's a billion things going on right now in your body that you're not even aware of. They're keeping you alive. That's amazing. But you know what you do, not you, us, people in general. You focus on, yeah, but I've got an itchy foot. Yeah, you got an itchy foot, but you got a whole respiratory system, and you've got eyes. Unbelievable, my goodness. Yeah, eyes are the most complex thing in the world, and you got eyebrows and a nose to smell your food with, and ears, and if someone said to you, I'll give you $3 million for your eyes. How about that? Would you sell your eyes for $3 million? No way. That means you got $3 million, my friends. You're walking around with something that you value at $3 million. And your legs, there's another $3 million. And your arms, there's another $3. You got $9 million, my friends. You're walking around with 9. We should be walking around feeling like the luckiest people in the world, counting our blessings. But our minds naturally tend towards negativity, tend towards what I'm lacking, not what I do have, what I'm lacking. If only I had a better job, a better body, a better boyfriend, girlfriend, better relationship with my family, better car, better son. If only something was better, then I'd be happy. And that's why we're never happy, because it's never going to be better, perfect. So don't rely on external things to be better, to be happy. Rely on starting to focus on everything you do have, and that will bring you happiness. Now, you've got to experience that. The key, the homework in this area is write a list of 10 things you appreciate. If you just write a list of 10 things you appreciate, I appreciate my legs and my mum and my food and my this. It's not going to do anything. It's just ticking the box. It's not going to do anything. What you then have to do is sit down and take time, turn off your phone and breathe very deeply and think to yourself, I am so deeply lucky. I have so many blessings in my life. And then when your mind chimes in and says, yeah, but you don't have this, say, okay, I hear that. But I'm just focusing on what I do have right now. Focusing on what I do have. And notice all the time, if you look around your room now, I've got books and I've got lights and I've got water in the tap. I don't know if you guys have water in the tap, but I've got stuff. I've got tables and chairs and I've got so much stuff here. I got more stuff in this one room than most families in Sri Lanka have in their whole life. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You've got to focus on this. By the way, the word for Jew in Hebrew is Yehudi. And Yehudi comes from the word lahodot, which means acknowledgement, which means appreciation, it's gratitude. To be a Jew, the essence of being a Jew is to have gratitude. The first thing I say in the morning when I wake up is, it's your turn to feed the baby. And after I say that, I say Modeh Ani, which means I'm grateful. Modeh Ani, grateful am I. Modeh Ani. It's bad Hebrew, by the way. Good Hebrew is Ani Modeh, I am grateful. But our sages say you don't want to wake up with Ani, with self, with ego. You want to wake up with Modeh, with gratitude. So you living a life of gratitude. So all you have to start doing this week Every time something happens and you're going to complain about it, food could have been better, have to have the same food again, got to do this again, just stop yourself and just say, well, but by the way, even if it's true, it might be true. And if you can change it, change it. If you can't, just stop yourself and just flip and focus on, okay, but at least. Many people focus on the phrase, if only something was different. I want you to completely flip that and focus on the phrase, when you're not feeling positive, focus on the phrase, well, at least I, rather than if only. So if only the food was better, okay, but at least I have food. Okay, at least I have my health. Okay, I've got a very sore leg and it's very painful, but at least I have a leg or whatever. It shouldn't take too much to find something that we can focus on. So this is what we're doing. We're focusing on the good, on the blessings, and on all the amazing things we have in our life. And what we're lacking, we're going to be okay, or you can try and get it. You can try and get it, but don't rely on getting what you're lacking to be happy. Rely on appreciating what you have to be happy, not on getting what you're lacking to be happy. How long do we have, Rabbi? You're muted, so I can't hear what you're saying.
I think you can go another 10 minutes. I've got no objections here in the chat column. You're doing great.
All right. I'll go another few minutes and then we'll have some questions, maybe. So I'm going to schlep in the third positive attitude shift because it's very related to the second one. We said as part of the second one that happiness doesn't come from getting everything you want. We tend to want to get and take things and consume. That's why we're ruining the world, by the way. Plastic. The best thing Corona's done is give the world a bit of a break. Give the planet some breathing space. But we're completely destroying the world through consumerism because we're takers, because we think we're going to get happy by taking. When I get more, I'm going to be happy. Now, in Native American culture, the Hopis and all those guys, it was seen as a mental illness to hoard, to take more than you need was seen as a mental illness. You take what you need. Now in nature, lions just kill what they need. They don't kill extra. And trees just take enough water that they need. They don't take more water. Everything in nature, apart from two things, by the way, everything in nature only takes what it needs to survive. There's two things that take more than they need, and both of them destroy the organism that they're feeding off. The number one thing that takes more than it needs are humans, and we're destroying the planet. And the number two thing is cancer, and cancer takes more than it needs, and it destroys the organism it's living off. So we don't want to be cancerous. So really, happiness doesn't come from taking. Happiness is exactly the reverse. It comes from giving. What can I give? What can I do for other people? It's not all about me. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? The attitude nowadays is, well, what's in it for me? Why should I do that? What's in my relationship with my wife? Well, what's in it for me? You're not pulling your weight. Therefore, I'm not pulling my weight. So that's the antithesis of Judaism, and it's the antithesis of Torah. It's the antithesis of happiness. Because happiness doesn't come from taking everything you need. Happiness comes from having a much broader sense of self, in that you live for something beyond your own self-centered little needs. You're thinking, what can I do? How can I be there for other people? And you all know this. You've been there for a friend when they're really upset about something, and you've sat with them for 2 hours while they've cried. You feel actually good about yourself because you know it was the right thing to do, to be there for someone else. We used to run these trips to Thailand, and I had a participant who struggled with depression a lot, and she went back to Canada, where she was from, and I helped her set up an organization where she took people suffering from depression and paired them up with volunteer opportunities, even walking dogs, working in soup kitchens, big brother, big sister type things. And it completely shifted the perspective of these people, because they felt good about themselves, because they were giving to other people. They got out of themselves and they did something more. They had a bigger sense of self. So we've got to start thinking not all about what's in it for me. You've got to think about what impact can I have on the world around me? How can I help other people? It's not about me at all. And some people, by the way, give up their life for something they believe in. 24,000 20-year-old boys, basically, have died since 1948 fighting for me to be able to live in Jerusalem and for you to be able to live in Jerusalem as well. They gave their life up for something bigger than themselves. Now, if there's nothing you die for, then you're not really living. If there's nothing you'd die for, then it means you think you're the most important thing in existence. There's got to be a bigger ideal than you. And people say, I'd die for my family. Okay, but how often do you talk to them? I'd die for my principles. Well, what are your principles? So you've got to have something bigger than yourself to give to. And that's gonna give you deep fulfillment and happiness in life. Rav Noah Weinberg, who said of Aish, used to say, you got to work out what you die for, but don't die for it, live for it. It's much harder living for it. It's one thing to die a hero's death, but to live a hero's life, that's much harder, that's much bigger. So, for one very quick idea, there's a concept of rights and obligations. Rights and obligations, and they come hand in hand. If I have a right to life, then you have an obligation not to kill me. If I have a right to my property, then you have an obligation not to steal. So rights and obligations always come together. However, the Western secular value system always speaks about rights, the Bill of Rights and the human rights and the UN Charter. It's all talking about rights. There is no word for rights in the Torah. There's no word for rights in the Torah. The Torah doesn't talk about rights at all. The Torah only speaks about obligations. This is Rabbi Tatz. I forgot what book. One of the Rabbi Akiva Tatz wrote a book. Is a whole chapter about this. I can send you the source. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't believe there are rights. In fact, if there is no God, then there is no such thing as intrinsic human rights. It's just all you have rights if your government gives you rights, and if you don't, you don't. So there's only intrinsic human rights if there's a God. So definitely God believes in rights. So why doesn't the Torah ever talk about rights? It only speaks about obligations. Because rights is self-centered, is ego, it's self-centered. What's in it for me? Obligations is what can I do for you? How can I contribute? Now, if everyone in society is doing their obligations, we're going to have a good society. And by the way, in your relationship with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever you have, if you're both in the relationship for yourselves, it's not going to be a good relationship. But if you're both into the relationship for how can I help the other one, how can I give to the other person in the relationship, and you're both really thinking a lot about how can I give, what can I put into the relationship, it's going to be a very, very healthy, loving, warm, emotionally intimate relationship. If you've got a relationship where one person is giving and one person is taking, that's also a nightmare. Someone's going to get resentful at some point. But we've got to shift big time, because it doesn't even work for you. If you can remain selfish, by the way, we're naturally selfish people. Just extend your definition of self. Yourself isn't just your little needs and wants and desires and dreams. You've got a bigger identity of self, which is myself as a friend, and myself as a husband, and myself as a Jew, and myself as whatever. You have a bigger concept of self, and therefore give and extend beyond yourself. Okay, I'm going to stop here. So we've done the first three, just to recap. The first three positive attitude shifts. One is a positive sense of self based on your good character traits and ultimately your soul, which is perfect. Number two, gratitude. I'm focused on what I do have, not what I don't have. And I consciously do that, though. I don't just write a list and tick it off. I actually give space in my day to actually feel deeply grateful. And number three is start being a giver more. How can I give to people? How can I volunteer? How can I not be so self-centered? How can I make a difference in the world? We've got 2 minutes for questions. And next class, we'll schlep on to the next three positive attitude shifts, which are the big ones.
Great. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and go for it.
Hello, Rabbi. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So you said that that dying a hero's death is easy, but figuring
Not
out
easy.
what
I
you
didn't say
die
easy.
for.
Dying a hero's death is something, but living a hero's life is much more difficult. If I said easy,
Yeah,
I didn't.
so if there's a way that you can live for that principle, and like maybe make it like your career in a way, would that be like maybe monetizing it isn't the most brilliant idea? Or what do you mean living for the thing that you would die for?
Let's say you say I die for my family. So spend more time with them and tell your mother more often how much you appreciate her, and think about them, and it doesn't mean give up your whole life. You should have your job. But it means make it a conscious thing that you have in your life. I die for what I believe in. Well, what do you believe in? What would you do? What's so important to you? What are your values that are so important to you that you give your life for it? Well, if they're so important that you die for it, so it must be so important that I'd live for it. I'm going to live my life according to that principle, even if it's difficult.
Okay.
That makes sense. And by the way, if you can monetize it, that's great, do. The best thing you can do, you have to make money and you have to support yourself and support your family. If you can make your money doing something you passionately believe in, that's great. Go for it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I noticed, by the way, that everyone always says, would you still do your job if you weren't being paid for it? So because of Corona, lots of people have actually faced that. Even Aish in Jerusalem, lots of the donors had to drop out because of Corona. So we got put on unpaid leave. And they said, but if, we still got students here, if you want to volunteer, come. And all of us are still going in. It's like, we do need to get paid at some point, heavily. But it's like, I want to empower people in their Jewish education and identity. So I'm going to do it, even though I'm not being paid for it. And then I'll have to go and play the guitar in the shuk, and no one's there because of Corona. But it's very beautiful if you can find something that you do, even if you weren't being paid for it. Obviously, we have to get paid as well, though. But you get the idea, I hope. By the way, if you have more questions, dbcohen@aish.com is a place that you can turn to. Okay.
Anybody else?
Self-respect, gratitude, giving to others.
Rabbi, maybe for next week, there might be some people wondering if this is a list of things to work on to cause a positive attitude shift, maybe to explain how does looking to give to others cause a positive attitude shift? Like, what's the dynamic there? Why does that work?
Because you're not so self-centered and you're not needing to get things to feel happy. In this way, you got beyond, like I gave the example of the depressed person who's working in a soup kitchen. They're less self-focused in my issues and my problems, and you're more focused on bringing goodness into the world, which gets you out of your own self, but then also makes you feel good about yourself because you are contributing. So as soon as you contribute, then you feel contribution naturally makes us feel good about ourselves. In the Kabbalistic underpinnings of this is that your soul is a giver. Your soul just wants to give the whole time. Your body ego wants to take the whole time because your body and your ego are lacking. Your soul is perfect. So your soul is a intrinsic faculty of your soul to want to give and expand and give to other people. So the real reason it's bringing you true happiness is because it's connecting you to your soul and taking you beyond your ego.
Great. Rav Dabir, thank you very, very much. You should have a power week. Everybody, if you're new to H20s and I might not have your cell number, send it over to me because we do have this WhatsApp group that is kind of trying to encourage everybody to work on the exercises. And sometimes I can send last minute messages out to you as well, even though we do have an emailing group. So my number is 083-289-6991. 6169, or just ask anybody else in the group that knows. And I'd be happy to put you on that group. Everybody should have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.